Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm your co-host, Kristin Sokoloff, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ronnie Ward. Ron, how's it going today?
It's going great, Kristin. I'm a little tired. As you know, I'm selling my house and moving.
Yeah,
if you're
that's
out there.
quite
I said this before. Don't move, people. Don't move, people. No, it feels so good once you have to. We could do an episode on this, by the way.
We should.
You know, when you're downsizing, whether you put it in storage or whether you just get rid of it. So you can't have emotional attachment to things. Maybe pictures, but other than that. So,
are you finding yourself stuck, like looking back and like the nostalgia of certain items?
Oh, that's the other thing is you can't, when you're moving, you can't go down rabbit holes because you open a box and you go, oh my God, there's those pictures or there's those. So I needed help. So what I did is I had a couple people here and literally one of them, she would just go, throw it away. You don't really need that. That's what I needed because I know that I get an emotional attachment to some of that stuff.
I do too.
And again, I am not
tough.
I'm not talking about pictures, but I had certificates from, starting, and I got rid of all that.
Yeah.
And it felt good.
Well, good. I'm glad you had that person there. Yeah, don't call me for that. I'll be like, oh, you got to keep that. That's amazing.
I would be just like you, Kristin. I'd be going, just put it in storage. You might want it later.
I know. Oh, goodness. Well, I love that. I think it's good for people to know, we deal with this stuff too. I mean, like big time in a big way. All right. So we're going to be talking about something. And Ron, you put this episode together. It's right in your wheelhouse. It's super interesting. And, we're basically talking about toxic loyalty.
Yeah, it seems like toxic comes up a lot in our episodes, but it is the dirty side of leadership. And each time we mention this toxicity, it's real. And this one is very real, and I've never heard anyone talk about this. So this is basically going to be, there's going to be a story within the story, but then we got a running story. So guys, stay tuned. I think you're going to find this interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you have the story before the story. Let's dive in.
Yeah, is that a thing? A story before the story?
I think,
anyway,
I think it should be.
The prequel, people, the prequel. So when I worked as division chief, you would, as with any agency, you would cooperate, you would help, because a lot of times you might have a subject matter expert. And by the way, I was in Charleston, South Carolina. Main office is in D.C. So there were times that I sent people to D.C. to help out, and there were times that people sent people from D.C. to help. So we had someone got promoted as a division chief, and I thought we had a good relationship, so we really had a need. We had someone on sick leave in the financial area, so I called and I asked her, hey, will you send this person to help? Because it's a person I dealt with a lot on a lot of contracts. So, and by the way, this person, every time I'm there, she's going, oh, I want to visit Charleston so badly. I want to see so I knew the person really wanted to come.
Yeah.
Well, she responds and I'm stunned. She's like, we're just too busy at this time. Like it went totally from a relationship to, this corporate speak.
Okay.
And so then I began to find out this person that really wanted to come to Charleston. Now, I wouldn't usually entertain someone criticizing their boss, but I ended up in D.C., and this person was like, I was so disappointed. The person that told me claimed that they were way too busy, and she goes, I could have done my work there. I so wanted to come. Now, I didn't say a lot, but I did have a meeting with this person, and she began to do the same thing, and I told her, I said, you got to understand something. A team is not just your unit. And she goes, well, I promised them I would protect them. And I said, protect? Did you use the word? You just stopped someone from seeing, a different part of the agency, a beautiful place. Like, you did not protect them. You robbed them from this opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
And then later, as time went on, I heard people saying, she would always go, my team, and I'm going to protect you all, and I'm going to keep anyone else from bothering you. So she made herself to be a hero with them. But slowly, anytime you get fake leaders, the support, the loyalty will dwindle. But I will tell you this, it was like a cult from last week. When this first started, they're like, oh, she stands up for us.
Right.
And she does our bidding and all that. So anyway, thank you everyone for letting me vent. I've been wanting to get that one off my chest since we started this podcast.
Well, it sounds like she made her staff believe she was protecting them. And the whole point was to make her look good. So it's very performative. And that is a major form of manipulation.
Yeah, and we call that the superhero complex. Wants to be valued. I'm your big protector and all of that stuff. If you could have seen her face when I said you really robbed them from a wonderful opportunity.
How did that go over?
There was no response. Just like I think her eyes glossed over because I'm not even sure she even realized, the impact.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. So now that our listeners have an idea about toxic loyalty, that was a great example because a lot of people, they think toxic is very obvious, right? And this is something where you have to look for it. And this one probably took a little time for people to realize that they were in a toxic relationship with their leader. And we're going to use a story that we can walk through, as you mentioned earlier, and we can look at some of the issues that occur when employees are blinded by the leader or when psychological numbing takes place and they ignore red flags. So, Ron, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, I will. And as we said last week, it's just like cults. You don't just, all of a sudden a culture is not just toxic.
Right.
It takes people manipulating, conniving, clicks. All these things start to happen over time. And if a quality leader will start to see it and start to take care of it. But people who, like that leader I just mentioned, they just let it happen. And they're at the top. Why would they care if somebody's being bullied or looked over, whatever? So
bad.
All right, we're going to use a guy and we're going to call him Mike. He joins a new organization. It's a good opportunity. Appears to be strong leadership. I mean, they got the vision statement on the website, and they talk a lot about loyalty, and it just rings all the bells for him. So he decides, and he leaves a good position at another company to come on to this company. And I will say Mike did not talk to any of the other employees because it was a state-to-state move. He didn't have that connection. And he was just looking for that new opportunity and wanted something meaningful.
I could really pick this one apart already. You already hit on quite a few red flags or just areas that he should have dove into. But, that kind of messaging you just mentioned, it really pulls people in fast.
Yeah, and it's total corporate speak. I was just on a call with someone from academia, and we were talking about the academic speak and then the corporate speak. They're very similar.
Okay.
They're done the same way. But basically, they had copied someone else's probably vision statement or mission statement, just modified it a little bit. And this was before ChatGPT, but that's kind of, you get the picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So this individual is very excited, made this big move, new beginnings, right? And jumps in and just starts working like 10 hours a day, volunteering for extra thing, learning the job, wants to be a subject matter expert or a thought leader in some area. And man, they're rocking, rolling.
Sounds like me early in my career. You're just saying yes to everything. We've done episodes on that before. So now he's not just working there. He's really part of, he's a cog in the machine, right? He's part of it.
He is. He's invested. So...
Yeah. So then there's a shift, right? And that's when something happens that most would overlook.
Right. So basically what we know from this story is someone speaks up in a meeting and it wasn't real controversial, but a different opinion. And it was a little bit of a mystery, but the next week they're gone.
Oh, wow.
Gone. And there's not an email. Nothing goes out. Just, no more whoever.
So many questions here. Yeah. No, that's wild. Because, and that's like, so it's so wrong to do it. It sounds like a scare tactic move. So everyone notices, but nobody says anything.
Correct. And of course, Mike sees it, but In his mind, he just explains it away. There's got to be more to the story. I know this person didn't get let go for difference of opinion. And there probably is a little more. This person, had started disagreeing and speaking up more. So, but that was it. There wasn't anything major.
Wow. I know. And it's he's probably racking his brain. He's trying to, that's really how it starts for a lot of people. You're trying to reinterpret it, really. You're trying to make it make sense to you. And that's how it starts, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they use the type of speech, which is opposite of what I told that division chief. I don't want people to think I'm contradicting myself. But they use a difference of opinion or a contrarian as you're not a team player. So if you question anything, you're not a team player. And that's used for manipulation across every organization, every industry. That's the big buzzword. Oh, they're just not a team player.
Yeah, which basically means they're not going to blindly carry on, whatever it is you want them to do, without rightfully questioning some things, like we've talked about, Ron, in a respectful way, in the right manner. But it's basically it's not a one-off. It's a pattern that we're seeing here in this story.
Yeah, we are. And Mike, though. He begins, because he's doing all this extra work, he don't have time, number one. Like you said, he's psychologically kind of glossing this over. There's got to be more to the story. And then because he's working so hard, he's there before everyone, he's there when people leave, he starts to get accolades. He starts, they call him out in a meeting. The executive calls him out, uses his name and says, Mike is putting in, we want to applaud him. So he feels great. He feels great.
Yeah, I totally can see that. It's interesting because we're talking about where agreement is being rewarded, basically. I don't know if he's recognized this yet. And honesty is being pushed out. And people they don't even realize that they do adjust to this environment.
Yeah, when you think about the manipulation. You work hard, keep your mouth shut, you're going to get rewarded.
Right.
But if you speak up, hey, it's like the Hunger Games, right?
Yeah.
They just disappear. So it doesn't take long to fall in line.
And that's especially when you have jobs that have that tenure, the pension, right? Like I really feel like that especially is going to keep people there. I never worked in an environment like that, right? Like in banking, you just have your 401k and you can bring it wherever you go. But Mike was correct me if I'm wrong, but he was working for either government, state, city, somewhere where all of that matters.
Yeah, it's true. So he was with a government agency. Now, here's a couple of things. You said something very important, Kristin. It's easy for us to sit here on a podcast and throw pop shots, right? We're like, oh, just leave. Well, it gets way more complicated. You got a family, you got all these things. But what I do in coaching, and I've done this, I think 3 or 4 times now, I go, let's set you up to leave. Because I could see that the toxic environment was so bad that this person's going to have to leave. But as they say, it's easier to find a job when you have a job. So I would say to someone like Mike, if this is resonating with you, start to make your exit strategy, but be very smart. Don't tell people. One of the worst things you can do is, I'm going to get the heck out of here as soon as I can. People talk.
Yes, they do.
You just have your own and if you need a mentor or someone, go outside the agency, get them to help advise you, but start to make your exit strategy. Now, here's what happens in this. When you begin to get into this toxic environment, you begin to justify things. The next thing you know, you will be a defender of the leadership. Well, they really weren't a team player if you think about it. And you also want to justify it. Mike moved across to another state.
Yeah.
Of course he don't want to just go, boy, did I screw up. It is really hard for us to admit when we've screwed up. And you and I did an episode, Kristin, you remember this one? Early on,
yes.
Oops, what was it? Oops, I hired a dud.
Hired a dud. That was like episode 3, I believe.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was still a teenager when we did that one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it's so true though. And you know what you mentioned, the moving out of state. I've never done that for a job, but I can only fathom you've relocated for a job. That pressure on you to make it work must be immense.
Yeah, it really is. And by the way, our academy was starting new, so I had all naysayers going, they're not going to keep that. That's an experiment.
Geez.
You're screwing up. You're moving.
You're like, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Well, yeah, I did do that.
Yeah.
In my mind, but I had to block that stuff out. But I was I was so excited, Kristin, nothing was going to stop me. I mean, I'm moving to Charleston, South Carolina, and teaching defensive tactics and all these things that I loved. At that time, of course, I had no idea I would ever become academy director. A lot of people go, the manifestos, they tell me, oh, did you speak this as a child? I was like, no, I wanted to be a basketball coach or a fireman as a child. What are you talking about?
That's funny. Yeah, I know. It's wild where life can take you, and I put myself in the shoes of Mike, and I just see, and I know through, working with you for so long, and that relocation for a career, it does have an added pressure. And even my husband relocating he was NYPD when I met him, and I got him to come out here to Portland. And there was a lot of pressure to make that work too, right? Even though it's couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
So, I definitely I'm feeling this pressure as this story is unfolding. And I think at this point, Mike knows something that doesn't feel right anymore. He's starting to get there.
But this is interesting as well as you start to paint broader brushes, they must have done something else. There's more to the story. Then Mike began to think, well, this is how leadership works. You work hard, you get rewarded, and if you're not going to be a team player, you just, you got to go somewhere else. So you began, it's cultish, really. We mentioned in our last episode, and if you haven't listened to the one on cults, people, you got to go back. But, it happens over time, but then once the mind is glazed over, it's like nothing else matters.
Yeah.
And Mike's kind of getting to that place.
Mm-hmm. And, at that point, he's not describing reality. He's really protecting his decision to stay. And again, putting myself in his shoes, I can understand that.
Yeah, I can too. So here's where the crack starts to form. You usually have to have something give you a jolt for you to really be, introspective about this whole thing. So here's how it happens. They get a brand new employee. Mike is supposed to train this person. He's like the training officer. And they ask a simple question. They were in one meeting and they go, Mike, it seemed like the leader just shut down any feedback. Why did they do that?
Wow.
Mike did not have an answer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's like, the question hits differently, or it hits different when it's new.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's really
He's getting a fresh perspective coming in. And this person is brand new and realizes, hey, there's no collaboration here. You just fall in line.
The wool's being pulled over his eyes for so long, and now he's starting to, it's pulled away.
And you know what it did? It triggered Mike's brain. He had to start thinking again.
Yeah.
And that's when things really began to change for him.
It's that realization moment, and that's really where it becomes clear for him.
Yeah. So he started asking himself. Now we're 2 years into this thing at this point, Kristin.
Oh wow. Okay.
And he starts saying, okay, did I stay because it made sense? Did I stay because I was loyal? I'm loyal to the mission. Those kind of things. All of this starts ruminating in his mind, and he's going to come to a decision soon. And
loyalty can replace your judgment, for sure.
Exactly.
It's all that psychological aspect of it.
It really did.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So, coming to the tail end of this story, I feel like that's what people need to hear. This isn't because Mike was weak. This doesn't happen to weak employees, right? Like, he needed to hear that. You're not weak. Something's not right here.
And fortunately, Mike sought out a mentor and started making an exit strategy. And within 6 months, it took a little bit of time, by the way. Sometimes you can't just jump ship. he had to lock in. But once his brain clicked, he began to see so many issues. Like it's like the veil was lifted, and then he could see it all. And he couldn't even believe that he wasn't seeing it before. It's an amazing thing when you get into that psychological manipulation and justification. You just start to live it, breathe it, think it, and adhere to it. And now his eyes are open. So the last 5 months he was there was way worse than any the other time because he could see the truth.
Because he could see it. Yeah, I know. It's like one day you look up and you're defending that something that you wouldn't choose today. And yeah, that would be a shocking moment. I want to ask you something on mentors, Ron. So you've mentioned mentors a few times, and I agree. I've been set up by my boss with a mentor before, and I always feel like that's not the best move. If they're in the organization and your boss is handpicking them, because I feel like you can just correct me if I'm wrong, but you're opening up to this person, right? And then if it's set up by the boss, is there like something behind the scenes where that person's now reporting back to the boss all your thoughts and opinions, hopes and dreams, right?
Now, we've talked about mentors before, but in this, I want to stick with Mike for 1 minute. His mentor was outside of this agency.
Okay.
Did not know. It was just someone, he needed support. He needed moral support, and that's what he got from his mentor. Now, his mentor was still back in the other state, but began to give him really good advice. Told him, let's plan to get you out of there. And it worked out. But when you talk about mentors, I think we use that word with a broad stroke. And Kristin, I won't do it again, but I researched the original word of mentor, and it goes back to King Odysseus. It's a great story because the original mentor was a terrible mentor in Greek mythology. So I won't take time, but if you're listening, you should look that up. It's a great story. I even use it in training sometimes. But a mentor can be for a brief period, like I'm teaching you something in banking for the next 6 months. That could be a mentor. You could have a mentor for life. And I tell everyone, if you are fortunate enough, keep someone older in your life, because they may not know all the bells and whistles and all the jargon. They'll keep you grounded. They'll keep you grounded. Yeah. They'll also keep you motivated. And I've got someone, I've mentioned him over and over, Dr. Sam Samples. He is now 90 years old. And I called him the other day. Ron, I see everything you're doing on Facebook. I love it. You've done so much. And it's like I hang up the phone. I'm like, I feel like I could walk on air, after talking to him. Yeah.
It is nice to have that. And I like that you specified you can have an internal mentor for a period of time, right? Someone maybe, and I would always think of them more like a trainer, but you could do it as a mentor. I would say the conversation with an internal versus external should be very different, though. What would you say on that?
No, I agree with you on that. Again, we might even do an episode on mentor, because there's a lot of intricacies with mentorship, I think, and it never works out. I said this on a previous episode, but I had people would call me, like say they work for a state agency, or I've even had one of my employees walk in my office and go, I want you to mentor me. And it's the most awkward. It just feels weird. Awkward.
Yeah.
And I've always said this, I think true mentorship develops organically, unless it is that short-term person that's assigned to help you. But that doesn't mean you open up to them. But they are, in a sense, a mentor, because they might have more experience than you, and they're showing you things. It really depends on your definition of mentor, really. But you're right. That internal, or somebody just coming up to you saying, hey, there's some people that I've coached, Kristin, that I always know it. I know when we're going to continue communication way beyond the coaching. I had a guy call me yesterday, but I knew that. I felt it. And we've never even discussed it, but he calls me on a regular basis. He'll text me, hey, you got time to talk? And he wants advice. That's mentorship. And we've never labeled it, but that's what it is. So anyway.
I love that. Yeah, we really should do a full deep dive on it, because it really is. It's important. And like I said, I've been set up on like a mentor, felt like a mentor date with someone that I had zero connection with, and it's very awkward, and I don't think either of us were really enjoying that, right? Because it wasn't a good match. And then the entire time I felt like I'm not going to open up to this person, because anything I would say would just be repeated to my leader, right? So like I kept very guarded, and so yeah, so there's definitely things, and I think we all need to understand that dynamic a little better.
When we do the episode, we have to tie in Elijah and Elisha from the Bible, because Elisha pursued Elijah. Elijah was trying to get away.
Not confusing at all.
And right. And before the end, Elijah was one of 2 people taken up without dying. And Elisha runs him down, and it makes him, pronounce a blessing or a promise over him. And so that's a unique story, but how the mentee pursued the mentor. Anyway.
Yeah, that is very interesting. All right. So going back to Mike, we're gonna make this real for listeners. We want to go over 5 warning signs. Why don't you take us down that road?
Yeah, we try to, as we always say, we try to provide solutions. So make sure that your mind is not already glossed over and you're not thinking independently. But number 1, you defend decisions you don't actually agree with. Now, I don't mean, look, if you're vice president of the United States, when the president speaks, you go out and you do the mission. And there is some of that with your deputies. I expected that with my deputies. But I'm talking about internally. You realize this is just not right. But then you start telling the employees why it is right. There's a difference in carrying out the mission than justifying it, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, I've talked about this before, Ron, is how to keep my employees' respect and trust, and just for my own dignity, I would say this has come in from corporate. This is the change that we need to make. Let's talk about it, right? I would let them air their honest and, sometimes grievances. And then I would say, okay, but this is what we're going to do because this is our new mission, right? Like we don't all have to love it, but this is how we're going to implement it, etc. And I think that that's just a healthy way to do it. At least it was successful in my experience. And I wasn't blindly defending it, because then they would just be rolling their eyes, if not to my face, behind my back, right? If it's like I'm out there not being human and defending something that they knew I didn't agree with.
Would you agree, though, that if the team is a lot larger, that might be a risk? And the second thing is, I think you knew your team, right? And they knew you for the most part. Am I correct on that?
Right. Yeah. We definitely, so a smaller team, like 10, and we all knew each other. And my meetings were always me, my assistant, and then everyone else. So my assistant and I were already on the same page before the meeting would even take place.
Yeah, because, I'm just saying, like, I had staff meetings with 40 people in there. There's no way I'm going to be able to let people vent, because and also, I might have somebody go, well, I hate those MFers, and so that's what I was looking at. But when I had section chiefs, I did the same thing as you. I'd let them talk about it and then say, okay, here's what we got to do.
Yeah,
all right.
And that's okay. I think that's really healthy, Ron, because they need that. And then as long as they're now like ready to go out and relay it to their team in a positive manner, right? That's the important piece. And they're running through the grievances with you.
This is one I'd love to hear from our listeners, because I think that is might have some differing opinions. We would love to hear from you. We don't mind if you disagree, agree. We would love to hear what's your thoughts on letting your team vent for 5 minutes and then carrying on with the mission. I'd love to hear what some people have to say about that.
Respectfully vent. I didn't have anyone like cussing and doing all of that. Like that wouldn't have been. Yeah, none of that. I'm like, let's keep it there. Like I would say, obviously it was more like, okay, are there any concerns, right? Like I was still orchestrating the conversation.
Oh, I imagine people screaming and cutting.
No,
I'm joking.
No. I'm like, no, that would be crazy.
Give us number 2.
I don't do crazy, Ron. Okay, let's say, so, and this does happen. This is a red flag. You stay silent when something feels off. Oh my gosh, people do this all the time. I've even done that, and I have a mouth.
Well, and also there's the passive aggressive. But yes, you're not going to speak up. I'm protecting me and mine, and as they used to say, me and my Ford, no more. So
yeah,
that's a sign.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. you feel drained, but you keep telling yourself it's just part of the job. And the drain is not because of physical labor. The drain is, and I've said this before, shadows are when your internal feelings don't match your external actions. When you look and everything around you disagrees with your values, you start to build these shadows, and it starts to wear on you. And it's a beginning of burnout and a beginning of a lot of negative anxiety and things in your life. So you got to be careful with that.
Yes, and that is what happened to me in 2020. I started looking around me and feeling like what I was doing wasn't as important as how it once felt, right? It felt like it was so important, and this mission was like my life goal. And no, things really changed. And you have to listen to that. Number 4, your identity is tied to the organization. I've seen this so much. My own mom admits that her identity used to be her career, and how much she regrets that. Yeah.
I talked to someone not long ago who was young, energetic in a company, and their whole identity was wrapped in that job. And I finally just said, hey, do you have any hobbies outside the job? I did that just to make them think a little bit. But yes. And look, Kristin, I still have academy dreams occasionally. I asked Stephanie, the academy director that replaced me and just retired. She and I had lunch. I said, do you dream about the place? She said the people, but not really the place. So I think, and I was academy director a lot longer than her, more than double, but I think I allowed it to be a little more of my identity. I admire her. I think she kept a wise distance from it.
Yeah, it's different. Everyone approaches it differently, and my banking used to be my identity too, because I felt so much confidence. I gained so much confidence through my career, and that is a good thing, but you also want to remain balanced. And I think that's when I checked myself, and that's when I had this realization in 2020 also, where my identity was my career. Like, I couldn't wait for someone to ask me what I did so I could tell them my title and my achievements, right? And then now it's like, wow, when you're self-employed, it's such a different world. People be like, what do you do? I'm like, a lot of things. And then I'll just be like, then I'll switch the subject, because it's just such a different world. So check yourself if you're like the stories we're telling right now.
All right, let's take this home. That's good stuff. If you wouldn't choose it again today, you need to question why you're still choosing it now. In other words, I use this a lot in coaching. Like if Kristin in the coaching environment, I would say, what would Kristin 2.0 a year from now tell this Kristin? You would be surprised how much wisdom people collect from just this imaginary Kristin 2.0. Yeah. They would say stuff like, they would tell me to be more organized, or they would tell me to keep going, not give up, or they would tell me to start coaching my way out or looking for another job. It's amazing how wise the 2.0 is if people allow themselves to access that. It's a unique coaching opportunity. Yeah,
I love that, Ron. Literally last night, I went to bed too early. So then, of course, I find myself just laying there. So I was looking at my TikTok account from 2020. That is so embarrassing. I was looking at all my early content, and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, and then I literally, it crossed my mind. I'm like, if I could only, like, the Kristin today could tell the Kristin in 2020, like, that was a little, like, immature or not so polished, or why are you using that voice that makes you sound like really soft and feminine, right? Like, I was like, what was I doing? But, fresh out of corporate and all of that. So it's just interesting. So I like the 2.0 approach a lot.
Yeah, I look back on my posts from last week and I'm embarrassed. So I
from
get it.
Last week. Oh my gosh! Hey, I do that sometimes too.
All right, we so appreciate you listening to us, and we had Kristin. Our numbers were up on the call. I emailed that to you if you get a chance to look at it. Yeah. But we went up a little bit, so that is great from last week. Yes, thank you. We're into growth, and we appreciate all of you that stick with us, and we got some more exciting topics coming.
Absolutely. Oh, there's like an endless... I remember you and I one time we were brainstorming. We're like, oh my gosh, are we going to run out of topics? And I'm like, are you kidding me? We both came to the realization that there's just endless, basically leadership failures, areas of opportunity. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
And our tagline, never
forget. The
forget.
entertainment aspect. I mean, come on, we barely scratched the surface on that.
We're just starting that part. So
yeah, so there's so much, ample.
That's right. All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.